Welcome back to day 2. So right now I'm just trying to get, I'm just experimenting with my air intake here. I didn't like the idea of using the factory hose and having it all squished in here. So what I did is I bought this angled oil fill here. I think it's for an Expedition or a Mustang. Anyways, I'll post the link in the description. And I thought if I could bring the air intake around here and then in, because I want to use the factory air box. I like the factory air box. I like that it's pulling the air from the front, not from the engine compartment, so it's a little cooler air. This is kind of what I thought I might do. Kind of like that type style right here. So I got a 45, flexible 45 on there, and then I've got a 90 here and a 45 here, and I think that'll fit. So I'll show you that one more once I'm done. I'm gonna have to drill in here for the breather, for the valve cover down here. It's gonna go into there, but we'll cover that in a bit. So basically I've just been playing around with a little bit, but now I'm going to get the electrical done. So what we need to do is remember our throttle plate sensor. It was up here, and our idle air control was also up here. So that's these two plugs here. So we need to put these two plugs over there now. So the idle air control is just underneath here, is right under here, and I probably should have plugged that plug extension onto here first before I installed this air box, because this plug is very close to this to the heater box here, and especially this little heat shield here. So I'm gonna have to bend this little heat shield to get that plug on there. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut off probably about 4 or 5 inches of this wire, plug that on there, and then there's wires that come in the kit. You gotta just make sure you keep the same wires to the same spots, otherwise this can go full open and you'll get full throttle at idle. And then the same thing with this, cut off some of that and then run some wires, and I think I'm just gonna run it right along here, right in here, tie strap it in here, and then over to the idle air control and over to the throttle body. And then remember, we've still got our air temperature sensor, so that's got to be run over to this plug here. Just finishing up my wiring here. So we've got throttle body sensor there, idle air control coming down right around. I'm going to tie strap this in after I get these done. So just a few little tips here is we want to stagger our connections. You don't want all the connections in the same spot. It'll be too thick to fit the protection around. So also don't use the butt connectors that are included in the kit. These things, you can see the slot inside. These are cheap. Rather get yourself some good quality butt connectors with weather tight seal, so when you heat them up the glue comes out and seals it. You need all these sealed because the last thing you want is this to fail and leave you stranded somewhere. Also, when I crimp my wires, what I do, especially with these little wires when they're so small here, I cut them a little longer, and then I fold this wire over and then put it in the butt connector. So that's what helps keep it in there. Otherwise it's just too tight. I think if I was to do this, like say for a desert racer or something, these should all be soldered. I wouldn't even be using butt connectors. But I just realized too, I have not done up my bypass valve, that top clamp. That needs to be done up still too, so I'm going to get on that, get that done. I kind of figured out a spot, I think, for my oil catch can. I'm going to put it right here. Just to explain the system a little bit. So how it works is your PCV valve back there, that's flowing into your intake back here under vacuum. So when you've got vacuum pulling, it opens up the PCV valve. It's like a little check valve in there against a spring. So that helps, you know, the vapors from your crankcase and stuff to go through and to be reburnt in your engine. But now what happens is when you slam on your throttle, full throttle, you've got a lot of blow-by, especially now that we're supercharging it. There's going to be a lot of blow-by past the rings. And you need to vent out your, right here, your valve cover vent. So PCV valve back there, flowing all the time. Slam on the throttle, no vacuum, boom, that slams closed. And now you've got a vent out of here. So what happens is, especially with the blow-by from a supercharger, turbocharger, is you get a lot of oil coming out of this vent. So that's what these things do. There's a medium in here, and also just a series of holes that it has to flow through. And as it's going through that series of holes, it catches the oil and it drops into the bottom. This is just a cheap one I got off of eBay. I mean, off of Amazon clearance. I like this one because it has a dipstick in it, so I can just pull the dipstick. I don't have to undo this whole thing if it's not full. So I'm going to run this down into here, into here, and then from here into my intake. And it's good, like I've seen some guys, they run just a filter off of here, just a little K&N air filter, but your intake does provide a bit of vacuum, and it's good to pull the pressure out of your engine, especially when you're boosting, because you can blow seals, you can cause things to leak, you cause oil leaks because you're not venting that out fast enough. So the pipe that sits here that has the hole in it, there's a little pipe that sticks into there, and that actually causes a little bit of a Venturi effect as it goes by, and it sucks through from your catch can, from your vent. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so that's our finished product. Just tie strapped it down in there, comes up, idle air, and into the throttle body. So let's get our throttle body bolted on now, get our cables connected, and get this kind of area back in shape here. So here's my catch can setup. So basically I just took the factory pipe, because I like the hard pipe that's coming out of here, and I just cut it down a little bit, put an elbow, this is the elbow from that PCV, where the PCV pipe goes into the intake, went into the intake before, and that's clamped on there good. So now we'll just tie this one into this intake when we get done here. Got my K&N air filter in here, it's all oiled up, ready to go. Some people say that these leak a lot of dust, which they do if they're not oiled. You got to make sure that they're well oiled, cleaned. It's just like any other thing. And honestly, this is the paper one that came out of it, and this is a, you know, it's a Purolator brand, so it's a name brand, it's not like a Chinese. And you can see where in between here these things are starting to separate, and I've got a lot of dust coming through my intake right there. See that hole? Let me see if I can see that hole there. So it's like that in a lot of spots here, and it's sucking dust straight into my intake. If you look at my intake here, just take a look at my intake there. Do you see that? That's how it was when I pulled it out. Not good at all. And that filter is probably only maybe 10,000 kilometers just before I went on my trip out west. So yeah, maybe K&N does let a little more in, but probably not that much. Anyways, okay, so I'm gonna put this back on here, bolt it in place temporary, so that we can work out where we're putting this intake in here. Just while I'm in here, I'm going to replace this pulley here for the tensioner. You can hear the bearings gone in it. There's the belt number in case we ever need that in the future, and that's the belt in there. Lines up really good. Just barely enough clearance here, it's perfect. So you got full tension on the tensioner. So I think for this oil catch can, the line to the intake, I think I'm going to run it right into here. Right into here. Just come right from there down and into here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my step drill. See, they provided this piece that's supposed to go in there, and it's got all these little fittings for the different tubes you want to run into here. But for me, that's not going to work because this tube makes it too big. So what I did is I popped out one of these little grommets. Where'd it go? One of these little grommets. And I'm just going to drill this tube to the size of that grommet, and then put that grommet in there, and then put the proper pipe piece right into there. There's our hole. Now I'm just going to fit the grommet in there. Okay, there's our vent. Let's go get this thing installed. This pipe here is 3 1/4. That fits the throttle body, and that's about the size of the mass airflow too. But because my pipe is 3-inch, there's this little sleeve here that comes with the Moddbox kit. This is inside the air filter, and it adapts 3-inch pipes to 3 1/4. So you just slide that in there, and then slide that pipe in there, and then just clamp it on. So we've got our throttle body on, cable's done up, wires plugged in. This one, obviously you don't need to put RTV on because it's got a gasket built into it. Yeah, so now let's get this intake on. So here's the finished product. It comes in 45, 90, 45. You can see that chunk of plastic in there, the rubber. So it's good and solid, and it clears the oil fill. So now I just need to run a tube from here over to here. So that's the catch can situation I got here. I know it looks a little messy, and it is. Probably been nicer if it was down lower so you didn't really see it, but anyways, that's kind of where I found was a good solid spot for it. So I just used my old heater hose, came around and into here, and then just that 90 that comes with the Moddbox kit, and yeah, the rest is pretty self-explanatory, little chunks of heater hose. So now we need to peel out this air temperature sensor out of the mass airflow here. So in our mass airflows, it's got the 2 sensors in there. So the one now we've moved from here, and we've put it down in the intake, right down where the air will be the hottest. So that's our wires here, and I've got my EVTM here. And so if we look at our 4-liter mass airflow 25.4, let's go take a look and see which wires need to come out. So we got gray and red and gray. So gray and red, gray. Those are the 2. So let's see if we can find that in our harness now. So it looks like it's on the 2 opposite ends. So here is gray, and then here's gray and red. So these are the 2 wires that we're going to have to remove from here and tie into our new air temperature sensor. So I tied in those wires there. So I'm just going to button this back up and tie down that wire so it's not bouncing around. And then I think we're ready to start this. Okay, that's it. Everything's hooked up. Wiring's all done. I've double checked everything according to the checklist that Moddbox gives you at the end of their instructions. So I'm just in the process of bleeding the coolant. I need to start it now though to get the rest of the air out. So I'm just going to hook up the battery, fire it up, and I'm going to give you a front seat to the startup. Let's see how it goes, and hopefully it doesn't blow up. So everything looks pretty good, no leaks, belts lined up nice. And it's idling smooth. I'm just going to scan it with the scanner and check if it's got any codes, and then we're gonna go for a drive. So everything's looking pretty good. No check engine lights. The air fuel meter's right up bang on 14, 0.7. And temperature's good. We're doing a little less temperature than before. It's down about 180 now. That's where we wanted it. I haven't tested any boost yet. I haven't laid into it. Just want to make sure everything's good first. So we're going to take it out for a little drive now. So, seat of the pants dyno feels good. You can really feel it. It's not like it's suddenly become a race car, this truck, by any means, but it definitely has more torque. It's got that pull to it. And I'll just show you a little clip here. This is from third gear, and just idling along. I was probably only doing maybe 2,000 RPM, and I stepped on it, and you can really feel it. It really pulls good. So I think it accomplished what I wanted. I'm going to see once I get the trailer on the back, but I think that's really where it's going to shine, because I think the Supercharger gives you torque. But if you want some crazy race car race car, it's not going to do it for you. Maybe not at the 4 pounds or almost 5 pounds boost. You're not going to enjoy it. So for me though, it's good. I liked it, and I'm quite happy I did it. Okay, so now we're just gonna scan for codes and see if there's anything flagged, and also check our air temperature sensor, make sure that's working. So let's just check the codes, give you a quick screen recording here. So if you notice from the screen recording, we got 62 degrees Celsius inside for the intake air temperature. That's like 140 Fahrenheit. So that is really hot. Probably just due to the way that it's sitting right there on top of the motor. So I'm not 100% sure how that will affect my timing or my fuel trims. So I'm going to check on that and see. But that might be too high. Maybe it's better to move it back out in the mass airflow, because that's the way that the computer is programmed to read. But we'll work on that now. Everything else is good. No codes at all. So it builds 5 pounds boost with no codes, and runs great. So I'm just gonna top up the coolant and then clean up the shop. Now, something I didn't cover because I don't have it on mine is the EGR hookup. So right here I've got a block off plate, but normally you'd have your EGR mounted right in here, and then Moddbox provides this extension to your EGR tube. So your EGR tube that runs from here to there. Now, just something to keep in mind with that EGR tube is with this extension, it's not built to be flexed. So you got to tighten this up onto that tube first, and then tighten it up onto the EGR valve. Don't twist this pipe because it will break. Then there's an extension to extend your vacuum line from here, from like where your little valve is here that controls your EGR, and extends that vacuum line over to your EGR valve. Other than that, it's the same installation as I got right now. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this video now. I'm quite happy with how the truck turned out. I'll give you the progress reports as we go along, but a few little tweaks that I'm thinking of doing. I'm not sure yet about that intake air temperature down there on the plenum. I could understand if it was getting a tune, you'd want to put it down there so that you can give, when you're adjusting the computer values, you could tell the computer, well, when it's this amount, then you got to retard your timing this amount. or increase the fuel this amount. But when it's on a stock tune, it's a stock computer, and it's expecting that it's going to see 35 Celsius intake air temperature, and now it sees 90 or 100, well then it's not going to work, right? And that's what I found. It would retard the timing as soon as you stepped on it. So it was actually would kill the power when you're wide open throttle when it was hot. So that's something that I'm going to look into. Also, I think I can go back and put on the factory coolant hose. I found doing it to the front like this, there's a small kink in it, and I'm not comfortable with the flow that I can get. And I think with doing the cold air intake this way, and also you got to remember I've got a body lift, so my body is higher than my motor, and so that intake is going up. So I think I can clear that lower or that upper radiator hose no problem. So those are a couple updates that I'm going to do. But follow along. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up if you found it useful, and stay tuned, subscribe and stay tuned for more progress update videos. And I got a few more projects planned, so we'll see you in the next one.